episode 4. Welcome to episode 4. Today we're going to be talking about Trashtalkan. But before that, everyone introduce yourselves. I'm Billy.
I'm Denise.
I'm Vance.
I'm Scott.
I'm Java. I'm Java.
Okay, so before we start talking about our topic today, which is very, very hot on Facebook right now, I want everyone to meet Java. Java, how have you been since the quarantine started?
I've been pretty good. Just locked down here in the condo in Pasig, and I've been here for the past weeks. I only leave for groceries. I went to SM the other day, and it seems to be the only supermarket open. I think that Shang's open, but I couldn't find the entrance.
Do you trash talk, Java?
I trash talk a lot. I love it. It's
A
like
lot.
it's so fun,
Okay.
but not that.
Okay.
Well, I'm not active in these groups.
Okay, so first let's characterize what trash talkan is. Then what do you think trash talkan is?
For me, I think that it's a virtual avenue for fighting people. Usually, the posts fight people of a general class, or like, the Burgese, the XS, or, zodiac signs. So that's what I generally know.
Okay, so do you think it's just for like conflict, expression of frustration between like one group of people towards another?
I don't think it comes from a place of frustration. I think it comes more from boredom, and they just want to be excited about something. I mean, I don't think they really hate each other. They just wanna trash talk so they can get engaged in a conversation. I mean, they're funny in nature, they're entertaining in nature. I don't think there's any real malice involved.
Okay, so you think it's expression of this I would say some level of animosity towards other people, but like understood in the context of entertainment,
Yes.
right? They're just bored
Yeah.
and they just wanna like release all this boredom or like try to entertain themselves by like insulting other people. But do you think it's a good culture to have?
Um, for me, I don't really think that it's a good culture per se, but it has to be tolerated at the very least, because I think that it's not logical for us to start fights for something that's not important. Like, there's no end goal kasi in this. So, and being part of a fight na, you just don't have anything else to achieve except popularity.
Do you agree with that, Vanessa?
Well, to be fair, I really, in terms of like a good culture, I think trash talking groups generally come at a spectrum. So you can't really say everything has a bad culture or like all of them have a good culture in general, because there are trash talking groups that would talk about politics in a really funny way and in a way that allows people to express their frustration against the government for handling the crisis, whatnot. But at the same time, there are trash talking groups that really just bully people or poke at a certain societal class. So I don't think that's so good. So it's a pretty neutral culture, to say the least. It's not necessarily good, not necessarily bad, depending on where you're looking.
Okay, wait. From the perspective of like how we characterize trash talk just now, right? We know that it's throwing insults at each other, right? Like fighting people from other groups, right? I think it's mostly based on the stereotypes that those particular groups are assigned, right? But we
Yeah.
have to understand that like trash talk has to be interpreted in the context of like entertainment. Like it's a form of comedy in a way, right? So for us to be able to identify whether it's actually a good culture or a bad culture, we need to know like what it does to society in general. Does it have like particular impacts on the people that are participating in it? How about the people who are around these people who are part of these trash talk and groups? Do you think what do you think are the impacts of these online trash talk and groups to the people who are like participating in them?
The people around the ones who post in these groups, is that?
Yeah, and the participants themselves, if do you think they are affected by the groups in any way?
Um, I don't think they're really affected because, yeah, you can go on these groups, you can post some trash talk. You'll get a lot of comments, likes. You have a conversation with people arguing or trash talking each other. But I don't think it really affects them in real life. I guess. I mean, it doesn't affect their
Okay,
families
then do
or
you
anything.
believe that like it doesn't translate to the attitudes of the people who are part of these groups, or it doesn't affect the way they think or like perceive other people in general?
Yeah,
Don't you think it reinforces the stereotypes that like certain groups are assigned?
the stereotype that what? Sorry.
Because like usually we would throw insults in a like funny way, right? Like okay, we need to interpret it like as a form of comedy, right? But we're making fun of like stereotypes that like certain groups have, right? But don't you think that it will reinforce those stereotypes na we're throwing at each other, right? Even though it's just like for the sake of a good laugh or like for entertainment.
I guess it depends on how they respond. I mean, you're gonna reinforce the stereotypes if you act in the manner that you're being stereotyped in, and like I guess it'll reinforce the stereotype if, yeah, I mean like if they act that way. Does that make sense?
Then what do you think?
For me, kasi, there's a spectrum of mentalities of how people may receive, like, being part of this group or being tagged in a post. Like, there are people who might feel attacked by the post. So, I think that there are certain impacts that, like, we can't just say that they're generally not affected. They also have some level of affection. Because, especially, there are some posts wherein particular person is tagged. So you also have to keep in mind what about those people. So yun.
Vanessa, do you agree with that? Like that, like
Um,
we have to look out for those people who are like maybe sensitive about these things.
I
Don't
mean,
you think like they shouldn't be part of this online trash talkan if they have that kind of attitude, right? Like,
okay. Let me try to organize my thoughts on this. Okay, hold on. Okay, firstly, okay, being part of like four trash talk groups, they really do come in very different mentalities. Some are a bit more personal because they might involve a batch page, like from your high school, or it could involve just something very impersonal, like your zodiac sign, so it doesn't really matter, right? But at the same time, there are some groups that really do take it to a very personal level. These trash talking groups are usually made so that people could hit off their boredom, right? And more often than not, they're expected not to really care about being hit on, because that's what it's for. It's to poke fun at, I don't know, maybe a past mistake or whatever. But at the same time, I can't really help but think that it breeds a certain toxic mindset, or it digs up certain things at the past that it shouldn't really dig up on anymore, and it becomes dangerous. Like, even if you say that, oh, you're too sensitive, you should just leave because this for fun anyway. Not, I don't think everything is, or like everything is posted with good intentions in these trash talking groups. Some of them have rage, like real rage, or some of them really do hit on people's nerves on purpose, like target a specific person on purpose and poke fun at that person.
okay, so I'm hearing like we know that like these online trash talkan groups can be a platform for these people who have actual hate towards this particular group, right? But like,
Yeah.
how do we identify what is trash talk and what is like hate speech? Because they're all mixed up together in one group, right? Like, how do you think a person in an online trash talkan group can identify which is like supposed to be funny and which is you know too much or like insensitive in a way? Java, do you have an opinion
Yeah,
here?
you're gonna have to define hate speech first because in general, it's difficult to say what hate speech is to begin with. Like, where's the line drawn? When are you expressing an opinion, and when Yeah, when are you
Yeah, but like
hating
that's the
someone?
question I have is like do you think there is a line between like hate speech and trash talkan, or is everything posted there, whether it's like incredibly insulting or just like pure cursing or just like dissing someone without the intention of being like funny? Do you think we should still, as like maybe readers of these like trash talk, do you think we should just take it as, well, he's always kidding, or like we should try to just make it funny instead of taking it
I mean,
seriously?
regardless of if they're kidding or not, I don't think it's hate speech. I mean, you're saying something about another person. Um, it's usually, maybe it has some truth to it, maybe it doesn't, but I don't think that it's classified as what you would consider hate speech.
So you think people would respond to these posts as, take it as, oh, well, maybe it's not hate speech, or like maybe it's also insulting, but like it should always be taken in the context of being funny,
No, it should.
like being not meant
I think
like
it should
as
be
something serious.
taken in the context that you know what you're getting into. Like it's in the name itself, trash talking. People are gonna be trash talking each other. You have to be ready to, if you can dish it out, you should be able to take it as well. You know, there should be some degree of responsibility for the users themselves.
What do you think about this then?
For me, because it's like, okay, well, the person did consent to start with the post and stuff. But like you can also control the response of the audience. Because like there's this one incident that became viral wherein like this girl started trash talking and then about her ex, and then biglang her ex's barkada started to like get back at her, and it was already on the personal level. So I don't think it's necessarily commensurate to the to whatever she posted. Like she can, like she knew that she can dish it out, but like how people like responded was like way like more than how she like way worse than how she tried to, you know, um send out that piece of comedy or expression against her ex.
Yeah, but so that using that particular example, right? So this person posts something that's insulting her ex, right? Basically, just like, okay, I want to diss my ex and I'm gonna put it in a funny way, right? But like other people will reply to her and like insult her, right? Maybe not in a funny way, but like shouldn't we understand that while we're in that trash talk group, we should always just like take things lightly and it shouldn't be like taken so seriously.
Yeah, but that's the point. Like, while she took it lightly, like her intention was just to take it lightly. Like her friends, or I mean, her ex's friends, started to take it as something that's a personal vendetta or something. So, I think that it became too personal. Like, because we also have to remember that the virtual actions that we have, they have physical and real consequences. So I think that's something that you have to keep in mind.
Okay, so but then based on that example, we have to agree that there's like a certain level of toxicity in this online trash talk culture that affects people who are participating in it, right? Scott, what do you think about this? That like even if we meant the trash talk groups to just be there to like alleviate our boredom, right? To entertain us. It has this level of like negative effect in society that maybe to some extent we shouldn't really have all these online trash talk, and because it becomes like a lightning rod of hate towards other people. Scott,
Well,
what
I
do you think
think
of
that
that?
you have to understand the idea of a Trashtalkan group in the context of like social organization. Because no matter what we do, regardless of whether or not these groups exist, at the end of the day, there will always be those types of individuals who end up getting that sense of pleasure from the type of discussions that end up happening in all of these Trashtalkan groups. Like, either way, it's going to happen. So I think it's more of a question of where exactly do you want this trash talk to be in? Do you want it to be conveniently found in a group wherein, at the very least, the people who want to and who find like enjoyment from that sense of discussion are able to like participate in those types of discussions, while everyone who doesn't want to be part is able to exclude themselves. I think that's like the convenience of a Facebook group. Or would you rather have these people like do it like openly in public? Because I think like at the end of the day, that's really like the big problem there. And then I think going back to your initial question, which was about like drawing the distinction between like hate speech and other things, I think that one of the things that really characterizes hate speech is a certain like amount of lack of consent. Is what you're saying, what is the message that you're trying to like output asked for? And I think that in the context of a Trashtalkan group, the message was asked for. Because by joining the group and by commenting anything, you understand two things. Number one, whatever you say is perfectly susceptible to trash talk from other people. And number two, like the whole idea that, the moment you say something, there are obviously going to be other reactions simply given that that's like the nature of the group altogether.
Okay, so everyone who joins this particular like trash talking groups like expects themselves to be attacked, right? But I feel like to a certain extent, we're there to alleviate our boredom, right? So we invite the attacks, right? Because we want to know how we will fend them off, maybe using like funny or witty replies. But like as we have seen, there's a lot of like negative things that arises out of these online trash talk and groups, right? Like for example, like people just like cursing at other people or people like discriminating openly within these particular trash talk and groups. And given these negative consequences that arises from these online trash talk and communities, like do you think there's a particular important aspect in these trash talk
Okay.
groups that it's so beneficial that
Really?
it makes those trash talking group
Oh no,
necessary.
we lost Billy.
Yeah,
Oh no.
can you hear me? Hello, hello,
Yeah.
can you hear me?
Hello. I
Yeah,
can
How
hear
can
you,
you
Java
but
hear
they
can
Billy?
can't.
It's weird.
you can hear me, right? Okay, so nawala ako.
Lumalayo kasi yung mic mo, Bill.
Okay, so what I was saying is, right, there are like a bunch of negative consequences that we can find within this that comes out of these trash talking groups, but we still participate in them. But do you think there's a benefit that comes out of these trash talking groups that would justify all these level of like toxicity and like inviting vulnerability that comes out of people that makes it like worth their while, like to be part of these trash talking groups? Java, what do you think? Can you hear me, Java? Then na lang. Go reply to.
I can hear you.
Yeah, okay. Can you reply to that?
Well, on my side kasi, I think that people trash talk because of peer pressure. So I don't think that it's always justified for someone to trash talk on these on these trash talk on groups, because it's not really like a genuine self-expression anymore. It's just I have to trash talk because the admins tell me to trash talk. So something like that for me. Hi Scott and Java. What do you think about the trash talk on groups? Like how can you justify people's expression?
Justify.
Yeah, how do you justify it on people's expression on trash talk groups? Like even if it hurts someone, why is it still justified? That kind of vibe.
I think it's in line with what Scott was saying. People are free to say what they want, right? And these groups are just like it positions itself as a place where you can just trash talk. I mean, there are like cyberbullying laws in place, and if you're gonna if you're gonna trash talk and you're gonna violate those laws, then no matter where it is, it's gonna be against the law. These trash talk groups don't give anyone any special like pass to do anything. So as long as it's in line with those, then sure. But I don't think in general people should be people should join these groups with taking a grain of salt. Like they should know what they're getting into. What I said. No one's forcing them to say anything, and if they are gonna post something, they should be ready to face the consequences or face the discussion that ensues after that.
And then yeah, I think exactly like what Java said. Obviously, there is no special treatment if you're doing it in a trash talk group or whether you do it like openly on a wall. Like either way, if it's illegal, it would be illegal in like either location. So I think it's pretty moot to just suggest like that it's unjustified on those grounds. But like on a bigger level as well, I think that at the end of the day, if anything happens in the group that offends you, then you should already recognize that that's just a consequence of your own decisions. Because you chose to join that group, you chose to post the things that you posted in that group, and thus you are freely entitled to all the consequences that that entails. Because it was a free decision you made. No one obligated you to do it, no one forced you to do it. You chose to be a part of that group, you chose to make that statement, the consequences are therefore yours. And likewise, like I said a while ago, it's better also that they do it in an isolated context rather than they do it in like an exposed place where, you know, everyone, even the people that don't consent to hearing these types of like these offensive types of statements wouldn't want to hear it. So I think it's just better that they're given their own bubble for that type of discourse.
I guess to add to a positive on like a trash talking group is that no one's really anonymous when they trash talk in comparison to like other avenues, like you talk about freedom walls from all sorts of universities. More often than not, they are anonymous. Well, actually, yeah, they are anonymous. Whereas in these trash talking groups, at the very least, if you wanna say something to someone, if you wanna throw out poop on someone, at the very least, you know who's throwing it out to you.
Don't people make like fake accounts just to trash talk?
I know they
So
can do
would
that.
that change that reasoning? Like, what if they make a fake account? There's no more
Yeah, but
accountability.
um, I guess to a certain extent, it's possible for people to go through lengths just to trash talk someone or a certain concept, but at the same time, we find that not everyone really does it. A large majority really just diss other people, and they use the same account, the same name, so they're still held accountable to it more so than any other avenue like freedom
And
walls.
I think also just to add to that, even assuming they did make a fake account, at the very least there's an account that you can track the statement to. So if I have a problem with your statement or if I want to respond to that statement, there's an account that I can go to. As opposed to like on the freedom wall, you can't track it at all. All I can do is comment on the post and pray to God that the person who made it is going to go ahead and read it.
Okay, so Billy wants to ask, are there lines that we shouldn't cross? Are there taboo topics? Are there, yeah, basically, whether or not you are anonymous, should your posts have some sort of consideration for a certain class of people, a person, etc.?
Yeah, go ahead.
I I think that yeah, it's good to be considerate to other people, but there shouldn't be any topic that you're not allowed to talk about. Because the moment you stop talking about something because it's too taboo is when you're not, I mean, that's against freedom of speech. You should be able to talk about anything. You're not going to get anything done. You're not going to have any proper discourse if you're afraid to talk about any certain topic. Anything should be on the table because that's how you come to a consensus. That's how you hear the other side of any argument. That's how you see both sides of anything. So you need to have the ability to talk about it.
And I think also,
Can I respond to
well, I think also to
question?
add on to that, another thing that you have to like note about like when you make a certain topic taboo or when you make it restricted is that that honestly just gives like dangerous topics so much more power. Because it's like if we talk about these things, it's such a dangerous topic that if you talk about it, you should be sent to jail or you should immediately be silenced because people shouldn't hear it. And I think the problem is when you treat certain topics as being like that, it just becomes so much more dangerous of a thing to talk about. Because people are now more likely to use the topic whenever they want to like bring, whenever they want to like incite violence, or whenever they want to like offend someone. So it just makes it an overall more dangerous place if you say that something's off a table.
Okay, but okay. Well, I agree that it's good to talk about controversial topics. My only concern is about how we talk about those controversial topics in the first place. Because when you try to argue discourse, what kind of discourse are we getting from these trash talking groups? Considering the nature of a trash talking group, it's not really meant for any sort of positive response or like well structured response. I think that what really happens here is that you give people an avenue to hit on personal um personal things, or like issues that don't necessarily, or like, the point is it doesn't really address the issue in general, but it might end up with the person hitting on another person's personal background and whatnot, because it's a trash talking group.
Well, to add to that, we go back to the premise of why someone has a trash talking group. Like you guys mentioned that it's just merely to vent out, to express how they feel. So I don't think that that discourse necessarily like reaches its end goal to, I don't know, change society or something. Okay, so ano daw yung most like interesting personal experience nyo in these trash talking groups? I can start. Can you guys hear me? Okay, so for me, like, it's this experience when I saw like my ex posting about like his crush daw. So like sumarap daw siya. So like
Oh.
it's just funny, like,
Yeah.
right? I get it, okay. But I don't necessarily know why it's a trash talk per se. So yeah, I think like this is where my point comes from, that people sometimes they just trash talk out of peer pressure. They don't really have any hate to begin with or any issue to raise. So that's why I think that like sometimes it's not really logical to start fighting just for the sake of it.
Okay.
How about you guys, Vance?
Since I'm part of 4 or 5 trash talking groups, some personal, some very impersonal, I'm gonna try to recall everything. So, more often than not, what I hear about in these trash talking groups is how they try to diss my zodiac sign for being boring or something. But beyond that, trash talking group, I also have a trash talking group from high school, and there's this girl who was not the nicest person, and then she kind of posts about being unproductive. A shout out to unproductive people during high school. I'm not sure if she's aware that she's one of those people, but people didn't really like her post, but someone commented Dico gets, and then everyone just haha reacted to it, or cry reacted to it, you know and I was like tempted to respond to her, kasama ka dun, diba? But like the point is, it's very amusing, I guess, these trash talk groups. Some could really hit very personally, some really for poop and giggles, really.
Oh yeah. Scott?
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, so like I don't actually do anything in these trash talking groups. Like I'm kind of just there. I don't like feel any need to be particularly active, because in all honesty, that just isn't the type of thing that I like doing in the first place. But then, so I don't really have like a lot of memorable experiences. Like sometimes I read what's there. Most of the times I just scroll past it if it shows up in my feed or something like that. So I don't think I'd have any particularly like interesting experiences. Like I get what it is, and it isn't for me, but since I can still tolerate the type of content that's there, I just stay in the group anyways.
Yeah, I never
Yeah,
felt
man.
compelled to start hating on anyone. I mean, if I wanted to, I'd probably do it. But being part of these groups doesn't it doesn't have anything that forces you into posting anything. And if your ex wanted to, I mean, I think your ex just was bored and wanted some attention, maybe. I don't know. But with these trash talk groups, do you really think that these people are compelled to do anything? I mean, there are so many people who are just reacting to it or just enjoying the conversation. And if you start hating the content or if you start getting affected, then you can always leave. Is it that much of an issue that these people are getting affected? If they're affected, why are they still there?
And I think like also kind of just like what Java was saying, na I think that when it comes to like all of these groups in general, I'm not I honestly can't say whether or not what you're doing is like good or bad. I think that that's honestly a very big question to answer. It's an ethical problem that it's pretty complicated. But I think at the very least we can say that everyone is there in one way or another, consented to be there. And given the fact that they like consented to it, we at the very least know that any actions that they do there are actions that they chose, or at the very least that any actions that, anything that happens there are things that they wanted to do.
For me naman kasi, you also have to evaluate, is it a healthy form of discussion once again? Because like, there are, okay, like, taking the point that there are people who actively consented to be part of the group, like you also have to consider the people whom they are talking about if they are in that group in the first place. Like, did they actively consent for this information to be disclosed? So that's like my take on it. Like, sometimes only one of the parties consent, but like, how about the other party who
Well,
doesn't
I think
consent?
if they disclose anything private, that's a violation of your like, right to privacy. So I think that's a different issue altogether. Like if they violate your right to privacy, then shame on them. If they say things that, you entrusted them in confidentiality, then again, that's also a shame on them. But then I think that the question of quality of discourse, it's also kind of different because like in the very first place, it's a trash talk group, which means that like its purpose is different from something like a newspaper or like a political forum where the inherent goal is to be productive. The goal of the Trashtalkan is just for people to be amused by like whatever acts of aggression or whatever comments of aggression it is that they want to post. Now, if they do something immoral, again, that's on them, and the consequences are also on them. And if they do something that abuses you in any way, shape, form, or manner, you should probably report them. But if they don't violate any of those things, then I think you should just leave the group if that's not the type of thing you want to listen to.
So yeah.
Can Java hear me
I
now?
can hear you. Yeah, cool.
Oh,
Yes, we can
he
hear
is
you, Bill.
back.
Yay! I'm back. Yeah, but like I feel like what Scott said is such a good like comment to end on. Because like we actually talked about everything that I wanted to talk about. Like if you yeah, do you guys have anything else to say? Like final messages for our viewers.
Can I say something? Even if there's a lot of trash talk groups out there, there's a lot of good talk and groups out there too, and you can get some good
Oh, yeah.
vibes out of those as well. Check them out. People on both sides.
I guess for me, it's more of as a lurker of 4 to 5 trash talking groups, y'all have fun trying to kill each other. I'm just gonna be there watching as y'all tear each other apart. So have fun, but I'm all for sharing really funny memes. Yeah.
And I think for all of like the people who like don't necessarily like trash talk groups as well, the internet's a big place, and if trash talk groups aren't for you, then that's 100% okay. No one's gonna blame you for that. But the internet's a big place, and I'm sure there are plenty of other places where you can find the type of discussion that you are looking for like your interest and stuff. So if it isn't trash talk, then that's all good. Leave the group, and you can go ahead and find something that matches what you want to talk about more.
For me, my final inputs, I guess, for those who post on trash talk and groups, like number one, make sure it's a trash talk, like it's not a dating site or something like that. Number two, I also want to point out that you also have to think of how people will respond to your posts, because they can't take it personally and you don't have control over that. So I guess you guys also like that's your check factor. Do you want this kinds of insults to be hurled at against you? And I think lastly, at the very least, the value of these trash talking groups is that you get to talk about taboo topics without any form of inhibition. So I guess that's some sort of value at the very least.
Dami mong alam.